guys, today we're going to do a copper recovery lab. Now out in the real world, when we're trying to get copper out of a mine, it's in ore, right? It's mixed up in the rock. A lot of times what they do is they put stuff in like sulfuric acid leaching to get mines. The copper dissolves in it and then we get copper sulfate. And from the copper sulfate we can extract the copper. Now we're going to simulate that today in the lab. Now first off, copper sulfate is actually hazardous and it's poisonous. Now honestly, it is not so poisonous that if I touch it, it's really going to harm me. But if I were to consume it, I could get sick. And all things considered, we want to be safe. I don't actually want to get this on my fingers, later go pick my nose, heaven forbid. You know, you just never know. You're not thinking about it. So if I handle it, don't wash my hands right away. We want to be safe. So we're going to handle it with gloves. Now, what we've got is copper sulfate. Now it's in kind of big crystal form and we need to get it in an aqueous solution. And we have some iron filings. Put some down here. Just a little bit of iron filings, but really almost in a kind of a powder form. What we're going to do is, ahead of time, I'm going to go ahead and take my copper sulfate and I'm going to put it in the mortar and pestle. Kind of about the big one. There we go. Get it ground up until we get a pretty nice fine powder. But there we go. And once we get it down into a finer powder, well, this is what we can kind of put in the beaker and dissolve. It would dissolve in the big crystal form. It just take a long time. So we're going to use our mortar and pestle, grind it up, make the solution. Well guys, I'm going to get the lab all set up here, film it so you guys can watch. Remember, you're looking for signs of chemical change, watching as it goes on. When it's all done, we'll take the stuff back in the lab, put it under a dissecting scope, and let you see what it looks like up close and personal. So I'm going to take off, get this space all set up, and we'll see you back here in just a bit. Even though it might be a little hard to see, we have 2 grams of the iron, and we're just going to dump that now into the copper sulfate, hit the timer, let it run for 10 minutes. Guys, I'll speed it up so that you can kind of watch it in time lapse, if you will, so you don't have to sit there for 10 minutes. But note any signs of a chemical change. Here we go. Been the 10 minutes. You may not have noticed it as easily. Of course, the time lapse will clear, but the color of our solution has changed, and now we want to filter out what's left. So I'm going to kind of put that in my filter paper and let that drain out a little bit. Filter paper is pretty high quality, so it takes a while to drain. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put some down here so we can get a look. We'll drain all of this out, take a look at it back in the lab, but just real quickly, we can go ahead and do a quick color comparison of what it started out with and what we ended up with. Well, let's go back into the lab and we'll take a look at these under the dissecting scope, but there we go.
Here we are looking at the iron filings. Move them around a little bit so you can kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. So this represents our iron filings. So get a good sketch. This is after the recovery. Taking a look at what we have there. Obviously, difference in color. I'm going to try and let me see if I can get some side by side. There we go. Not perfect because they're spilling into each other, but sorry, I'm getting out of focus a bit, but there you go. Kind of a side by side comparison of what it looked like before and what it looked like after. Well, there you go. Get your sketches in. You should be able to wrap it up.
All right, well, there you go. Copper recovery, simulated in the lab. Took our copper sulfate, dropped some iron in it, and we get a chemical reaction, double reaction. The copper precipitates out of the solution and the iron replaces it. So what I'm left with is iron sulfate, and I get the copper out, copper recovery. The iron sulfate could actually be, the iron could be pulled out if we put in lead. Another chemical reaction would occur in what's now our iron sulfate solution once we remove all the copper. So pretty much it. Copper sulfate, iron, you can pull the copper out, copper recovery. Finish up the lab report, make sure you get all your questions done, think about them quite well. Other than that, guys, take care, and we'll see you next time.